Networking is the exchange of information and ideas among people with a common profession or special interest, usually in an informal social setting. Networking often begins with a single point of common ground. Until mid-March, folks could expand their network however they saw fit, in person, at events, or online through organizations, groups, forums, etc. But now companies, their teammates, individuals, and hungry hustlers like yourselves are forced to get uber creative. Welcome to the Fervent Forum. Did you know that only 4% of businesses ever cross the annual $1 million revenue mark? What's up, everyone? I'm Zack Miller, author of Anomaly. And with me today, I have my co-host, Tim Ryan, lead man at startwheel.org. Thanks for joining us. The Fervent Four is a weekly show every Monday at 11 a.m. dedicated to sharing insights into growing a world-class business no matter the climate. Follow along and share your thoughts and journey with us. Use hashtag Fervent4. Over the past decade, Laura Henderson has grown the most popular local networking group, BizConnect. So popular, it's won what seems like every single award possible as the go-to organization to join. She got started in business early in her life when she opened her first pretend business. More on that later. But because of all that pretend success, she took her knowledge to Pilot Media and had a very successful career there for almost 2 decades. It led her to starting BizConnect, where she has created a 500 plus strong membership, and they meet each and every month. The Fervent Four is powered by the SBDC, which helps local small businesses grow through counseling and resources like this show. If you're interested in learning more on how the SBDC can help your business, head to startwheel.org/weekly. Welcome to the show, and thanks for tuning in. What's up, everyone?
Hey.
Hey, Laura. Hey, Zack.
Howdy doody. Haven't said that in a while. That was fun.
and don't say it again.
I was gonna say it again. Damn. What is that from? How do you that word that I'd said before? What show was that from? Is it from a show?
I think it's an old school show before my time.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
I don't want to admit that I may know what it's from because that might show my age.
No, it just means that you've been watching a lot of Netflix.
No, it's Howdy Doody time. What is that?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what that is. And speaking of awards, Zack, do you see?
Oh, yeah, there it is.
The belt.
Small business champ Laura Henderson in the house. Look at that. There it is.
Nice.
So, Laura, let's get back to let's start with the origins of BizConnect. You were, what is that, 2013, 2014 time frame? Like, what's the genesis of how it got started?
2014. It's you mentioned that I worked for Pilot Media for almost 20 years. And when I left Pilot Media, I started a marketing business, and the business was called Win Local Stuff. And it was really to market local businesses through social media. So I would host contests to drive traffic to different local businesses and their social media page. So in order to build business for me, I was looking for networking groups to attend and to build relationships and get some new clients. And I just couldn't find anything that really I felt comfortable, or I felt everything was so salesy. And I did try out quite a few. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to just one of my businesses that I did some work for was a restaurant. And I said, hey, what do you think about me bringing a group of maybe 15 people in once a month, and we'll just do a little impromptu networking. So I started that, and the first one I expected, 10, 15 people, and I believe I had about 25. And it just started growing and growing. And it was very informal, but it kind of showed me that that's what people were looking for. They weren't looking for salesy type networking groups to go to.
What restaurant was the first one at?
Well, it was Starving Artist, which actually wasn't Starving Artist at the time. It was the Paint Gallery. So it was before she actually morphed her business into a restaurant. And she was doing art classes at the time. And anyway, it just kept growing, and that's when I thought, I think there are other people who are looking for this kind of networking, and I think I could probably turn this into a business on its own. And that's how BizConnect was formed.
I love it when you're kind of solving your own itch or solving your own problem. I was watching this video of this fitness athlete who recently was talking about how he created his own endurance formula, which is basically his own Gatorade, because Gatorade wasn't working well enough for him. And so he had the assets available to fix that. And it's very similar to what you're saying here, where it's, hey, like I was going and networking, but I wasn't able to find the networking event that was viable for me, or that I was feeling comfortable about that. Like what? And then you said, well, let's talk to someone that I know and figure out if me bringing some people to her or to them was a viable option. It was, and obviously that's the genesis of there. What was the challenge with the networking events that you were going to that you disliked at that time or didn't feel comfortable with?
Well, like I said, they were a little salesy. I felt like you walked in and the vultures were waiting, and they were waiting to pitch their product or service, and they would talk at you, and I don't think many people actually ever asked me what I did and wanted to know much about me and my business. And so I felt like I did a lot of listening, which is great. It's great to be a good listener, but you want some reciprocity. You do want to be able to, it's like building any relationship. You want to get to know somebody before you say, okay, I'm going to hand you some money and do some business with you. You really do want to get to know somebody.
So as people just like with stacks and stacks of business kind of had to get to the arsenal to find these. So people just like going in there and just like throwing business cards at you, like, hey, like buy from me. Like, yeah.
Did those type of people follow you to BizConnect to join your group?
Yes. So I think, I will say, I think a lot of people start out that way. But one of the things, when somebody joins my organization, I specifically say, this is not an organization where you're going to, walk in and people are going to start throwing money at you. It's just not going to happen. If that's what you're expecting, then you are not going to succeed. The other thing is, it is not about just going in and starting off with, hey, I'm so-and-so and this is what I do for a living. It really is more about building the relationship. And when you're networking, it's there's this saying that we have in so I do a workshop here called Ditch the Pitch, and we really do that workshop because we don't want you to pitch. Nobody wants to be pitched to unless you're in a pitch competition. Like
know the environment, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So nobody wants to be pitched to at a networking event. So, it's, you had me at hello, and it's, when you walk in, it's smiling at somebody, it's making eye contact. It was the handshake. We may be getting rid of the handshake.
Now we bow. Now we bow.
Yeah. But it really is that first impression. And so that's why we kind of say, you had me at hello. Now, we didn't coin that phrase. That's also from a movie. You know what movie that's from?
Oh, I thought it was a country song.
No. It's Jerry Maguire.
Oh, it's Jerry Maguire. I was thinking it was You Got Mail, but okay.
Yeah, Jerry Maguire. But there's a lot of things I'll see people who have kind of a shtick, and they go in and you can tell they've rehearsed this shtick. I can't say it, but it's not genuine. And I think when people are genuine, and you really, I can smell a shtick a mile away, and it's you really do need to be genuine, and that's how you're going to succeed. So yes, I do have people, but I have actually had conversations with people who have joined the group, and I've gotten complaints about them because they're not following those rules. I've had to actually not renew a couple of memberships because they just can't get rid of that shtick. So, there's a lot of people in the group. There's a lot of different personalities. And so I feel like I've had to kind of curate and also mold some people into the right fit for our group.
I have two follow-ups to exactly what we're talking about here. Number one, I don't even like to talk business when I'm at your events or any kind of events. Honestly, my first question I like to ask people is, what are you watching on Netflix? Because I feel like if someone has a Netflix account or is watching a ton of content, then they want to talk about that type of thing. So like, I'm trying to like legitimately deep dive into what they do for a living. But the other 40 hours a week that they're up, not like the 40 hours if that's what people work these days, in their business. And so it's trying to really figure out what they do other than work is so incredibly valuable. And I think that's what you're getting to there. But when we think about networking and meeting someone for the first time, I don't know if it's taught. I don't know if it's Hollywood. I don't know if it's maybe at business school or just in general. But I feel like the first question that people have been required to ask is, hey, what do you do for a living? Yeah. And it just seems to be the norm. And then people feel like it's awkward to not ask that. Right. So how does it, so one, the genesis, and either of you, if you know it, like, what is the genesis of what do you do for a living, right? Why is that what so many people have to ask? And then two, I guess, is how do you get off that stick, if you will, where it doesn't seem like that's a really genuine, I don't believe it's a genuine question. Like it's because if the person doesn't answer the right way, then you've already lost them, right? And so like, how do you get off of that being the question that's necessary that so many people ask as that first question?
I think that's a good, I think that networking is about, has been about what do people do, and I think for a long time, that's what people thought they were supposed to ask. My approach, and that's why I think I was so turned off on a lot of the networking groups that I was going to and started my own. One of the things that I do, and I always find it kind of a little game, is to find commonalities with people. And, if you can find people in common, hobbies in common, you almost have a friend almost immediately, because it just energizes people when you start talking about.
And that's the Netflix thing right there, right? Is if we have the same show and people are watching Tiger King, it's like, there it is. We can talk about that.
Yeah. Yes. And commonalities usually will be, I kind of start that with, I find out where they're from, and I don't mean what business you're from. I mean, where'd you grow up? What brought you to this area, kind of thing. And then I find I can really sort of start weaving and finding some commonalities. And you'd be surprised how many commonalities you can find just by asking a couple of questions. So that's sort of my approach with it.
Yeah, that's one of the big things, at least that I have found, that no one is going to take an interest in you until you take an interest in them first. And and it sounds like, and I know that the environment that you're creating is an environment that you take an interest in other people. And I guess to a follow-up to what you were saying earlier is that one of the things that I find so fascinating is once you create the right culture, a lot of there's a lot of self-policing that goes on with people that the people that are really, really salesy, you see them being the outcasts, and they almost self-eliminate. And that's it's a nice sign that you've done the right thing in terms of setting the right culture and a welcoming environment for people to want to participate in.
Yeah, but I never want anyone to feel, because genuinely, I think people come in and they don't know. They may work for a company and their boss has said, I need you to go out and I need you to get leads. So they think, okay, I'm going to join this networking group and I'm going to come back with, like Zack had, that stack of cards. And that's not really the purpose, and you're not going to succeed by doing that. Trust me, I have a stack right here on my desk too. So I think, I try to coach them through a little bit, because I'll see people coming in and they're overzealous about, right when they get in there, how many people can I meet? And so I kind of feel like it's my job as the founder of BizConnect and the one who wants to keep all of the other members happy and engaged, to sort of give those people a chance by kind of coaching them through it. You're right. If they can't change and they can't build relationships by, just being natural, they will self-eliminate, and that's okay with me.
Sure.
What's interesting about that, though, is from a probability standpoint, people don't make transactions on the first meet with someone anyway. So I think the statistic is it takes 5 to 7 positive interactions for someone to go from a visitor to a buyer anyway. And knowing that those transactions don't happen until, the 5th or 7th positive transaction or interaction with that person. why would you start selling on the first meet? And then also, like, if you have a negative encounter with that person, imagine that they tick you off that first time you meet them. It takes 35 positive interactions to get them back to step one to start liking you again. So to put that into a different perspective, imagine you go to a restaurant and you have a terrible time. Would you give that restaurant 35 more tries to see if you started liking it?
No.
So that's why it's so imperative to not be a donkey in something like this. But so many people, like you said, their boss says this is what you need to do. Well, I mean, someone needs to show their boss statistics, these stats that say, hey, like, it doesn't work that way. Like, I've got to massage the relationship, if you will.
Yeah, and that's part of the culture that we're in, is all the instant reaction. It's not necessarily gratification in this standpoint, but as you know, all these silly cliches, smile and dial, and it's a numbers game, and people associate that with the more business cards that I collect, then I go back to the office, I dial and smile, and until I can land something. But in today's world, you have to establish a relationship and play the long game.
Dial and smile. Where did you come up with that? I like that.
That's an old school thing too, but
goes back to the cold calling days.
Yeah.
But I don't think cold calling, while I don't encourage people to do it, I think there is a way that you could cold call in that kind of way. Like, showing up to a network event like that is kind of a cold calling way, right? Like, if you knew who was going to be at that event and you called that person beforehand and said, hey, I saw that you're a member of BizConnect. I'm a member of BizConnect too. I'm going to be there. If you happen to be there this week, I'd love to connect with you. That could be a cold call that I don't think is necessarily a terrible thing. And it's just introducing yourself to that person, saying, would love to connect when you get there. And so I think the cold call of immediately jumping in saying, buy my thing, is terrible. But just introducing yourself from a cold call setting, I don't think is the worst thing in the world that someone can do. I think it actually could be just the introduction that's necessary so that someone sees you.
Yeah, Zack, you've probably heard me at some of my meetups when I always give people a goal at the end of, hey, meet at least 3 people that you haven't met before. And that doesn't mean sell them. That means go up to them and introduce yourself, maybe set a coffee date. And, I think I see that a lot of people are really successful who, when they meet somebody, they do meet up for coffee later. But they also say, hey, this is just to get to know you and see how we can kind of help each other. And I think I notice people are more successful when they do that.
How does knowing that exact language is also something that discourages people, because that's kind of tied to a sales perspective? And that's something that you had said that I think discouraged you in the past too with some of these other networking events. How does someone know the truth in there that person genuinely is just trying to get to know that person and not get you in a more personalized setting to then sell you?
Well, that's a tough one, because I have the most honed gut meter. And like I said, I can smell a shtick a mile away. I can tell when somebody's being genuine and when somebody's not being genuine. And so I am able to tell when somebody is trying to sort of bait and switch me and get me out for coffee, but then sell me. And so I think you really have to, like I mentioned before, you really do have to find those commonalities, build the relationship so that it's somebody you want to have coffee with and you would enjoy having coffee with. If somebody is trying to sell you and you kind of in your gut feel like this coffee is going to be about selling, you're probably not going to accept, and you're probably going to kind of try to get to know them a little bit better before you accept a coffee date with them. But I know people who are really successful at it.
Yeah, and I hope that you're teaching folks Instagram, LinkedIn seems to be the worst. Just because I accept a request to connect with you on LinkedIn doesn't automatically mean that the next step is, hey, let's set up a meeting because I want to buy what it is, whatever you're selling. I mean, it's just
they took some course from someone that told them that was what they were supposed to do.
Yeah,
it's the worst.
When I started getting those, and I get a lot of them, I think a lot of people see BizConnect and they think, oh, she can help connect me. And what they don't realize is they need to become a part of the network to, really reap the benefits. But, I started out going, okay, how can I tell these people, sort of teach them that this isn't the way? And I thought, well, I don't know these people. Who am I to be the one to kind of tell them this isn't the way? So now I just give them the thumbs up, and that's it with my comments, and then I'm done with them.
So when someone reaches out to me and asks me a question, I play right back into it, right? So if someone says, oh, I saw something in your profile that really got me. I said, well, what was the thing in the profile that got you? And what's interesting is even if they are a canned message, still only, I would say, less than 10% of people actually then even respond.
Oh, really?
Which is really interesting, because then I can look back at those people and say, well, 90% of you are just copying and pasting and don't even really care about the relationship side of it, where the people who at least would then respond, like I got one yesterday and I responded to the guy, and I went to his profile. It was clearly a canned message from him. And to me, it said that he was like a collegiate athlete. I said, where'd you go to college? Or what sport did you play in college? Still haven't heard back from me. It wasn't even yesterday. It was like 3 days ago. Still haven't heard back. So to me, for someone that's so actively wanting to have me be a part of their network, 72 hours later, you haven't responded to a very simple question. I think it's a telling sign. And it took me 2 seconds to respond to something like that. It's me just playing back at that. Which is kind of a fun little thing too, I guess.
Sort of like I like to play with the scammers who send me an email and ask me to go buy gift cards for a friend. So I love to play back with them too.
Right, or send it to their aunt in Africa or whatever. Yeah, those are the best. So we live in a world now where the physical aspect is, I guess, frowned upon, not allowed. Insert whatever word you want to use to describe that now, where you can't handshake someone, you can't see someone. What online are some of the things that you and BizConnect have done to try to encourage that same communication, that same relationship building, so that it's not lost, even though you guys can't physically meet where you would have multiple times a month?
Yeah, this pandemic, or I call it the pandamit. I'm kind of over it.
That's good.
So I've had to really shift everything online, and it's I have Ask an Expert now, and we have talked about tips for managing stress during a pandemic. And I had a counselor from South University who came on and talked about that. I've had we're going to do networking on Zoom will be our next Ask an Expert. I've been doing my Biz Tools workshops instead of in person, our digital media workshops. We've been doing those online. And the most fun thing, also Young Professionals Meetup, but our Friday member meetup that we've been doing, for years now, we're doing those online now. And, they started becoming the same thing. We would introduce ourselves, and it just became, to me, boring. And I thought, what can I do? So now I have a host, and the host actually will give us a tour of their shop or their gallery or whatever we're doing. So this Friday we have a potter. She has a pottery studio, all hands pottery studio, and she teaches pottery classes. So during the event, she's actually going to be throwing pottery on the wheel, talking to us while making something. And then we're going to do a show and tell. So people have to show us something that they've made with their own hands. And whoever participates is entered to win that thing that she's making. So I'm just trying to keep them interesting and fun, and people still will get a chance to talk and interact during the meetups.
Yeah, it's amazing. When Zoom came out of the gate, it was the cool new thing to do. And it seems to me anyway that there is a lot of Zoom fatigue that is starting to take place. And requires a lot of innovation on our part to keep things engaging and fun, to want to bring people back. So do you feel a lot of pressure from an innovation standpoint to keep things fresh and exciting?
Well, the good thing now with the host is different every time. And so there's different topics that we talk about. The show and tell has actually been really fun, because it gives you a little nugget about a person. And I try to theme them around whoever the host is. So, we had royal chocolate a couple of weeks ago, and I had people show us something in their cabinet that they keep on hand to satisfy their sweet tooth. And that was kind of funny seeing what people kept on hand. I personally don't keep sugar on hand because once I have it, it's gone. So I never have a stock of it. I shouldn't have just admitted that. My personal trainer might be watching.
So what would the item be?
Well, because
you can't just start telling us that I can't do this, because we clearly is that you have some sort of sweet tooth in there. Like, what is it?
The chocolate covered Heath bars from Fresh Market. But I'm not getting them anymore. Anyway, so that was just another fun thing that we did, and of course, I've had some nonprofits on. One of the things that this pandemic has made me cancel, and I'm very disappointed about it, is my BizConnect Gives Back event that I do every year, and I've done it since the very beginning. And we've raised almost $20,000 for our nonprofits, and because of the COVID, I cannot do it this year. So I don't feel comfortable asking people for money. I don't feel comfortable asking people for donations. So, while I'm disappointed, I'm really worried about a lot of the nonprofits in the area as well, because they're having the same issues.
I do think that recently on Give Local 757 Day, they raised over like $1.2 million or something. And I think a lot of them are a part of your organization as well for that day as well. So there was money that recently went through, I believe. So that was a good thing for many of them, hopefully.
Yeah.
What's as you were saying that, Tim, and I think Laura, you said this as well. I was doing, I've been giving a webinar on kind of how to, like the formula that's necessary to keep an online event going, so that people don't get that fatigue and that they stay in there. And this is the line that I wrote in the kind of like copy to entice people to tune into the broadcast. It says, disclaimer: it is even more important now that your content is solid throughout an online event, because your audience can't just leave at a physical event. It's much harder to get up and leave. So let me restate that. Because your audience can just leave, unlike at a physical event, it's much harder to get up and leave. Where online, they just go, I'm done, boom.
Right.
Whatever. In person, they're like, it's a little bit harder to leave. They feel bad. If they're sitting down somewhere, they make a big ordeal about it. Where online, it's like, on to the next. And so if your online content is boring or is not helping someone, it's on to the next. So there is a formula that people have to follow. And I think many people need to just realize that it's harder to keep people engaged online, right? The average YouTube is the number two social network in the world, or search engine in the world. More videos are consumed there than anywhere else, and the average consumption there is 4 minutes per video. So that shows me ADD, right? People are leaving to see other stuff. So
yeah, well, since you said that, I always look at the numbers when I start. And I always think, okay, people are going to drop off. Every now and then I'll have somebody, I think people are scared. Sorry, there goes my microphone. Because they don't leave. And so that they'll stay through the whole thing. I think people are scared to leave during the event. So you just have to scare people.
Or so that quick little insight into what I would say in there is, you just got to entice them to stay longer. Like, hey, in 17 minutes, you're going to get this. In 31 minutes, you're going to receive this. And oftentimes, I think that you can look at your just normal broadcast television to see how that they strategically put people through a show to say, hey, here's what to expect. Watch sports, yep. Right? In 21 minutes, you're going to get this. In 37 minutes, you're going to get this. In 4 minutes, you're going to receive this. It just keeps people in to say, hey, this is what you're going to do. And I think that's great.
That's why I do the contest at the end, the drawing for whatever the prize is. And people, that's probably why they're staying, not because they're scared of me.
Well, and they like the group and whatnot. So during all of this, like how, from a mindset, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, how have you been mentally through this, emotionally through this?
Well, I think I mentioned a little while ago, we were talking, I've always sort of thought of myself as an introvert, and I was kind of excited about just being at home and doing Zoom meetings. And I'll tell you, I think that my energy and my motivation has really gone down. And the only thing I can attribute it to is the fact that I'm not seeing people in person. We have a very close group of people, and we like to hug each other, and we like to hear about each other's families. And it's been, I feel like I'm not getting that energy that I typically get from the in-person meetings. So that's one thing I'm really struggling with a little bit.
The lack of feeding off of others.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I have a membership organization. It's tough for me to send out an invoice and say, hey, your renewal is due. I know you're struggling. So the other thing is my business is sort of paused right now. I do send out something saying, hey, I'm a small business too. If you can, it'd be great if you can renew. We'll revisit it if you can't. But it's tough. And I know a lot of businesses are struggling right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing for me personally that's difficult. I agree with you in terms of I feed off of the energy of others, and everyone has their political view of masks and no masks. But one of the things that I have noticed personally when I go out is when people have their masks on, it hides their face and you can't see that smile. And it's amazing how much energy that you can get from somebody's smile. And
smile with your eyes, Tim.
Well, and so few people can smile with their eyes. And but gosh, that's just,
is that a thing? People smile with their eyes?
Smile with your eyes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how does someone please teach us, because I've never heard that in my life.
Well, really, it's if you're smiling under your mask, you're automatically smiling with your eyes.
See-through mask. That's the invention. So you started BizConnect because other networking groups were not great. Now we need see-through and transparent mask. That is the new one. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to, but
yeah. It's going to be tough. I don't know. Do we keep up social distancing? Do we meet? Everybody stands 6 feet away, and so it's it's one of those things I've been thinking about. I'm asking my members. Once I have the feeling it's going to be a little bit longer before we can come back, but I'm going to see what my members are comfortable with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one question I have. So you've mentioned a couple times now you're being an introvert. So how does an introvert come up with what did you do? How did you come up with a networking business? I mean, so was it a conscious decision that I gotta come out of my shell and do this, or I'm just curious what the backstory is behind that.
If you ask most people, they wouldn't think that I was an introvert. But I'm one of those people who, being in big groups of people really exhaust me. I'm able to do it, and I do get some energy from it, but it wears me out for the rest of the day. So it's not one of those, I just can't wait to be in more groups of people after this group of people. So it was really out of necessity that I started the networking organization, and maybe the fact that I was going to other organizations and I wasn't comfortable at those organizations, maybe I had to create my own thing to feel comfortable networking, and that could be how it all started.
Yeah, that's one thing that working with different businesses is forcing people to get out there and talk to other people. It's a challenge for a lot of folks.
Yeah, I'll hear people say, oh, I'm such an introvert, and an extrovert, and just because you're an extrovert doesn't mean you're great at networking. There really is an art to it. I've seen some introverts that are much better at networking than some extroverts.
Have you heard of the term ambivert? I think is what it is. It's like a hybrid of both.
What is it again?
I think it's ambivert or something. Or I'm saying the wrong word because there's someone else that I'd had on my podcast at Zack Says Everywhere. and they said that they thought that they were an introvert, and I was shocked at that too, to hear the same way with you. And then someone had been listening and said, "Oh, it sounds like you're actually an ambivert," which is like a hybrid of the two, which is honestly what I think most people are. But we've been told you're an introvert or you're an extrovert.
Myers-Briggs, I'm dead center.
I have people would never think that I'm an introvert. And while I would probably never sway that way, there's plenty of times where I'm just like, I don't need to be around people. And so maybe I'm an ambivert too. So I think we're all just ambiverts, to be honest. But
I've always said I was an introverted extrovert or an extroverted introvert.
I think that's what she had said. And someone said there is a word for this. It's called ambivert. Huh. I'll find it and send it to both of you. So there's a lot of language out there. There's a lot of individuals out there that are very much swaying on the positive side of stuff and very much on the negative side of stuff. Not from a political standpoint or anything like that, but just like, my business is going to fail this, my business is going to succeed that. How do you, as a leader in the community, try to encourage people to stay on the positive side instead of getting stuck in what could be a self-fulfilling prophecy from the negative side of it?
You know how many conversations I've had recently about the silver lining? This everyone has a silver lining from this, and I do too. Yes, I mentioned my business right now is sort of on pause, but I'm okay for a bit. But the silver lining of this is that I have started some hobbies again. I've been painting again. I've been working out again. When I go back to after the pandemic, I'm not going to work as many hours. I'm going to enjoy. And damn it. I'm really going to get out and enjoy nature and do some of the things that I've now adopted. And so that's what I kind of tell people, that they need to look for the silver lining in what's going on. And I know a lot of people kind of say, well, there's not much silver lining. I'm about to lose my business. That's a tough one. And I've heard a few people say that, but they're limping along. They're, whatever encouragement I can give, they're still in there trying to make it work. So this is going to go away.
When you hear someone that's going to lose their business, do you, and not to name a specific business or anything, but do you feel like they're being creative or innovative enough so that they are actually exhausting every effort? Or do you think that they're staying in hard times? And let me give you a little bit of backstory and context of where I'm going with this comment. So to me, it seems like a lot of what we're going through right now is a bell curve. It is people that are being forced, that were on the third and fourth quadrant of a bell curve, into kind of new age ways and haven't innovated the ways from the past. And now they're still trying to get that old thing to stay relevant and to stay afloat, even though this is an opportunity to, or maybe not an opportunity, but they're being forced into doing something new. Do you feel like there's a lot of people out there that are just sticking in the old ways? Like you're hearing a lot of restaurants, I can't be open. And then you're hearing other restaurants that are like, I'm going to do whatever I can to make money during these times, getting super creative on all that. So like, where do you think that is in the whole spectrum of, are they exhausting every effort?
Well, you said it a second ago. There are people in the positive and there are people that are in the negative about this. And I think sometimes it says a little bit about their personality. I am somebody who always looks for the silver lining. And I think there are people who it's woe is me and it's always going to be woe is me. So you're absolutely right. I think there are people who their business isn't doing well. They just can't seem to get over that. I've got to come up with something creative. But then I've seen the people who are sort of on the positive side who have come up with some really creative ideas to keep their business going. So you're absolutely right about that, Zach. There are the positive and the negative, and sometimes it's just a personality trait that's hard to change.
To me, that's, hanging out with a lot of positive other people as well. Get all the negative Nancys out of the way and the negative Nicks out of the way. But then also there's these opportunities I see as from an internet perspective and a lot of this, where people could be making a lot more recurring revenue if they were to just adopt some of these new practices. So you see a lot of fitness, I don't think the word's guru, but these fitness instructors who are now doing stuff online when it's it's not like online selling is a new thing, right? I mean, you worked at Pilot Media for how many years? And when they started talking about online stuff, and that was a long time ago. And so some people move with it and some people don't. And so those that are getting into the world of online, I mean, there's a lot more money from a recurring standpoint that can be made in that kind of way for people that are jumping on board with it. And for those that are waiting for the old to come back, I don't know that it's going to, and I don't know that they should be waiting for that thing to come back.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Tim?
No, I agree as well. And we've talked about this several times on previous shows. It's a grind. You got to continue to grind through it, start new things, be positive, and you can get into a real negative space because it's going to take repetition. You got to do things long enough to know if it's going to work or not. There's
like a glacier of entrepreneurship. There's this picture, this graphic that I've seen. I've probably seen it 10 years ago, but I've seen it a couple of times recently, where it shows you like the world and what you see. And then like underneath of it is like all these other things that you have to go through. It's basically the roller coaster of entrepreneurship, right? And it's not as glorious as everyone thinks. And so it's kind of like that. Sophia Clark says, love the BizConnect, Biz Tools workshops.
Oh, thank you, Sophia.
What do you think about when someone's building an online profile on specifically a social network? It doesn't matter what social network. What are some of the tips and tricks that you would give someone to show off who they are from an online perspective?
Are you talking social media?
Yeah. So like if someone was posting on social media, they're watching this probably on social media. What's something that they can do to enhance themselves, their business, to get someone to see who they are?
Well, right now, this is why I'm doing so many Biz Tools workshops. And my instructor, Casey McCoy, she is fantastic at teaching people how to have a presence on social media. And right now is the most important time, because how much more time are you spending on social media right now? Just scrolling and seeing what's going on in the world. A lot of people are spending a lot more time. So this is the time to just post about your business. And even if you're not open right now, you've got to keep yourself so that people see you. You've got to keep that presence going. So I have a few clients that I do social media for, and their business closed. And what we ended up doing was finding some funny things to do. So we did some funny videos, and I found that the humor, people need humor right now. So things that are funny really did resonate with people. So, finding some content that, if you're not open, finding just some content that will keep people interested in your business is very helpful.
Yeah, and especially in a time now, one thing that I can't stress enough to people and kids is you can't measure success from a social media standpoint based on the number of likes and shares. As you said, a lot of people just keep on scrolling. They're looking at what you're posting, but just because there's not engagement doesn't necessarily mean that people aren't seeing what you're posting. So sticking with it from that standpoint is super important as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mentioned a client you're posting for, and a lot of times what they want to see is engagement. And I've had a hard time sort of taking that's not the thing anymore. People don't want to comment because unless you turn off your notifications, you see all of the other comments. They're going by fast. So you've got to have something that's going to catch their attention, and they're not necessarily going to like and comment. So that's a good point that you make.
Yeah, and we're in an algorithm game right now. So if you can get within that algorithm, so once everything does open up and the floodgates open, if you're already in that algorithm mix, then you're going to stay there. But once everything opens, everyone's going to be fighting for that attention.
Although the likes do help.
It does that, and you got to get out there and try to be the anomaly as much as you can.
You said it before me.
Is that how you work that in there?
There's a post I'm trying to find that I had posted many, many years ago that's right on point what you're saying, and I can't find it. But
is it? It's not the post where you're interviewing yourself.
No. Wow, that is fun. That is not the one. Oh, I said this: be strong. You never be strong. You never know who you're inspiring, right? And so that made me think of kind of what you're saying. Like, people don't necessarily engage with the material that you're saying. That doesn't mean that it's not working. And so that I think that can be a really hard indicator, because, marketing gurus will tell you that's the thing that's necessary. And while it is, it doesn't mean that people don't see that message, or it might just mean that that person isn't engaging with it. Mm-hmm. And they see it and they like it. And, if you positively help them a couple more times, they might reach out to you, or they might start liking something that you post. And so it's an interesting thing. Apparently on Instagram, they're getting rid of, in some cases, likes and loves and the engagement numbers. So that'll be interesting to see how that comes out. I'm for one hopeful that with all this social distancing and online education, stuff like that, I'm interested in seeing where the world of bullying goes. And if that goes up or if that goes down, just from that, it will be interesting to see. You would think that it goes down, but it'll be interesting to see like how resilient kids are with that and what they try to create in that. So that'll be interesting myself. What's something? Let's talk about this pretend business that you started way back when. How old were you when you started that?
Oh gosh, I was probably in elementary school.
Okay.
Not quite sure, but my first pretend business was in my bedroom. I would set up a desk and I started a printing company. And so I remember my father would come home from work and he'd get up to my desk and I'd ask him what he wanted on his business cards. And so he would tell me, and I remember his title was something extraordinaire, which I had no idea how to spell. And
could you spell it now? I mean, that's a hard word.
probably not. But so he would go away and he would come back and I would have business cards printed up for him that I hand wrote. So I can just remember having lots of different. Later, I would have committees with my friends, and I'm sitting, and I was always the leader of the committee. So for some reason, I guess I was born to lead a business.
Was he in the paper business or something like that?
No, my dad designed airplanes, so he was.
Oh, that's cool.
I guess he was an airplane designer extraordinaire.
There you go. And where do you think you learned like the business ownership chops from all that?
Well, my grandfather owned both grandfathers actually. One grandfather owned a chain of hardware stores in Augusta, Georgia, and my other grandfather owned an ice business in the summer that switched to a coal business in the winter. And so, I don't know back then if it was necessity that people own their own businesses, but they own their own businesses. And I can remember I always admired them, and I would go to their shops and they'd let me play with their adding machine and stuff. So I just always loved that. And I love the fact that they owned businesses. So I think that's where I probably got it from.
This is an interesting question. The small business movement, the buy local movement is something that for the last decade, maybe even longer, has really been pushed. What we're going through right now is something that is very detrimental to that. How does the global brand of buy local continue forward through this when it appears that it's been hit really, 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 really hard?
Well, I think the buy local brand, my hope is that it's going to come back stronger. I feel like people now, Amazon is no fun anymore. It's not Prime. You can't get things quick anymore. So I encourage people, don't look at Amazon. Look at our local stores. Even if you have to call them and say, hey, do you have something? Can I pick it up at your curb? I think once we open back up again, people are going to be so willing to go out of their way to help small businesses and to do business with small businesses. That's my hope. And I hear people saying that. So I'm really hoping that's going to be true.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. How the post that you're hearing people say is, I don't get this thing tomorrow anymore. And I love the switch that you just put on that, where you can still get it tomorrow and today if you do this. And so by changing the narrative and owning that narrative is something that I think is incredibly important for any brand. It's like, if you want people to know something about you, you have to own that narrative. Don't let others tell the game of telephone through someone else. You are the one that needs to push that. And I love that, because it frightens me what this world looks like without these kind of Main Street America businesses, with the the changing of the Amazon, since so many people buy from there now. But being that switch in there, I think that's wonderful, and more people need to be speaking towards that from a owning your narrative perspective.
Absolutely, and I highly encourage it. When things open back up, please shop at our local stores. Yeah, and thankfully, business owners are starting to feel the pain from others' closings and failures, if you will. They have to adopt, or else they could be next.
Yeah, if someone was interested in joining BizConnect, you guys can go to, and I'll put it on the screen, bizconnecthr.com. Give me, at every event, you give a 20-second elevator pitch on BizConnect.
Well, it's not a pitch.
All right, but you're historic. We've been branded with the elevator pitch for so long that we call it the elevator pitch. Give me that elevator pitch. And if you have a different word for the elevator pitch.
Well, before I give you the pitch, I think right now it's tough because people don't want to join a networking organization because they can't meet in person. And so, thinking of having to redirect, I'm now offering an incentive for people to join, where if you join now, your membership doesn't actually start until we start meeting in person again. What that means is, if we start meeting in person again in 4 months, then you've gotten an extra 4 months on your membership where you can join in all of our online meetups. And I've had a few people take advantage of that. Again, I want to say BizConnect is a networking organization with almost 500 members. And we really do focus more on building relationships, building trusting, lasting relationships rather than selling a product or service. So if you're interested in building a relationship, which helps you with collaborative opportunities, referrals, then BizConnect is the networking group for you.
When do you, as an organization, even if legally you're allowed to start having people again, when do you decide that it's okay to bring people back in? That's a tough one, because my Friday member meetups are typically in smaller locations. And so we kind of cram 50 people in a small location. I foresee what's going to happen is my monthly meetups that are in a much larger venue, even though they do have more people, there's more room to spread out. I kind of see that the phased approach might happen for me, where I open up the larger monthly venues, and we still continue to do the Friday meetups via Zoom. And then we'll see what's happening. But, I don't see it happening within the next couple of months. I really think it's going to be another couple months before we're able to do that. Yeah, from a big group perspective, I was talking to Tim before this. He qualified for Boston Marathon for a marathon, and they moved it from April to September. His race isn't until next year, and I'm supposed to be doing another Ironman in June. They reschedule it to September, and it was like, until there is a race, period, with a large amount of people, I don't expect any of this stuff. And so I'm kind of with you, Laura, where it's like, does the 10-person thing really get lifted? Does it go to 50? When does that next jump up? Because even your small events, I think 50 is probably the small amount on that, and the big events are hundreds. And so, it's going to be interesting until you start to see a precedent of stuff like where does that happen? And until you start to see one, I don't believe that it's going to happen. Hopefully it's sooner than later, but also hopefully people are safe during all of this. Which is really
I don't mind press, but I don't want to be in the press for giving 50 people COVID-19. Right. So I'd rather somebody deliver a baby during BizConnect or something or not.
Baby delivered at BizConnect Hampton Roads.
That's right.
Quote from the founder, Laura Henderson. It was great. Thanks. If someone is is on the fence about networking, what's one quick tip that you would give them?
Get off the fence.
There you go.
But we've talked about that. I mean, and Zack has mentioned before that the Nike slogan "Just Do It" is one of the most brilliant slogans out there, because that's what it really is a matter of doing. Just go.
It's probably
That's my
between
new slogan, get off the fence. Actually, it's get a buddy. Grab a buddy, come to a networking group with somebody, and it makes you more comfortable to do it that way.
I mean, one of my tactics at networking events, I look for the person that's standing sheepishly alone.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's they just want somebody to talk to.
Well, they will remember that forever.
That's right.
That you made them feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Tim, any last words?
No, I've enjoyed the time. This is it's been a fun hour. Can't believe an hour went by that fast.
Laura, tell me about that title. Tell me about that title belt behind you.
Oh, that I wear it to the grocery store every now and then.
Do you really?
There goes my. There you go. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Small business champion. Thank you, Zack from Hatch.
Laura Henderson. Look at that championship belt. You want to be different? Give people championship belts. Look at that. Love it. Laura, appreciate your time today. This has been awesome. If you guys are interested in joining BizConnect, go to bizconnecthr.com. Until next Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern, I'm Zack Miller. That's Tim. That's Laura. Peace and pancakes, y'all.
Thank you.